The air itself feels wrong. Thick, heavy, with a sweetness that shouldn't be there. In the narrow streets of Florence, the summer of 1348 burns hotter than anyone can remember, but it is not the heat that makes people sweat. It is fear. A fear so deep it has no name, yet only whispers. The pestilence, the great mortality, the death that comes in the night and takes entire families by morning. You walk carefully now, avoiding the center of the street where waste runs in channels toward the Arno. But even here, pressed against the stone walls, you cannot escape what hangs in the air. Smoke from burning clothes, vinegar, herbs crushed and scattered. And underneath it all, something else, something rotting. The city smells like an open wound. A shutter slams above you. Then silence, the kind of silence that feels unnatural in a place that once rang with voices from dawn until long past dark. No merchants calling out their wares, no children running between the stalls, no laughter spilling from tavern doorways, just the occasional sound of a cart, wheels grinding against cobblestone. And if you listen closely, the muffled sound of weeping from behind closed doors. This is not the Florence you knew 6 months ago. That city is gone. What remains is a place learning to live with death the way others live with rain or wind. As something constant, unavoidable, part of the very fabric of existence. The pestilence arrived in October of the previous year. Carried on ships from the east, Genoese trading vessels fleeing the Mongol siege of Kaffa brought more than silk and spices to the ports of Sicily. They brought something invisible, something that moved from sailor to docker to merchant to family. By the time anyone understood what was happening, it was already too late. The sickness spread like fire through dry wheat, leaping from city to city, town to village, house to house. It http://house.it/ begins with fever. A sudden heat that makes the body shake and the mind wander. Then come the swellings, buboes, the physicians call them. Hard lumps that appear in the groin, under the arms, behind the ears. Some grow as large as apples, dark and tender and filled with poison. The pain is said to be unbearable. Then comes the coughing. Blood on the lips, black spots appearing on the skin like ink stains. And finally, mercifully for some, death. 3 days. For, if you are unlucky, from health to grave in less than a week. In http://week.in/ closing parenthesis the beginning, people tried to fight it. Physicians came with their knowledge of humors and bloodletting. They examined urine in glass vials, consulted astrological charts, prescribed mixtures of crushed emeralds and powdered unicorn horn for those who could afford such things. They wore long robes and masks shaped like bird beaks, stuffed with aromatic herbs to filter the corrupted air. But the physicians died too. One after another, their learning meant nothing against this enemy. The church offered prayers. Masses were said. Processions wound through the streets. Hundreds of people walking barefoot, singing hymns, carrying relics of saints. Some beat themselves with whips until their backs ran red, believing that God had sent this plague as punishment for sin, and that suffering might turn away divine wrath. But the processions only spread the sickness further. People returned home and collapsed within hours. The priests who heard final confessions, who anointed the dying with holy oil, who touched the fevered foreheads with gentle hands, they fell sick too. So many that there were not enough left to bury the dead. And so the city adapted. It learned new rules, new ways of being. You do not touch anyone now, not even family, not even children. When you speak to your neighbor, you stand 10 paces back. You watch their face for signs, pallor, sweat, The slight wince that might mean pain is beginning somewhere inside them. If someone coughs, you turn and walk away without apology. Rudeness has become survival. The markets still open, but they are strange, hollow versions of what they were. The vegetable seller arranges her goods on the table and then steps back. You approach alone. You point to what you want. You place coins in a bowl of vinegar, and she retrieves them with a cloth. No one haggles anymore. No one lingers to gossip. You take what you need and you go home. Quickly, always quickly. Inside the houses, families seal themselves away. Windows are kept shut despite the heat. Cloths soaked in vinegar hung over the cracks. Some burn juniper and rosemary constantly, filling their rooms with smoke, believing it will drive out the poisoned air. Others drink themselves into forgetfulness, draining the wine cellars that were meant to last years. What does it matter now? Tomorrow may not come. The wealthy flee. Those with country estates pack their households into carts and wagons and leave the city behind. They take their servants, their best clothes, their jewelry, their favorite hunting dogs. They tell themselves that the clean air of the hills will protect them, that distance will save them. Sometimes it does. Sometimes the sickness follows them anyway, hidden in a trunk of clothes or carried by a servant who felt only slightly unwell when the journey began. For those who remain, life narrows to a series of small, desperate acts. A woman checks her children each morning, running her hands over their necks and under their arms, praying not to find swellings. A man carries a pouch of herbs against his chest, gripping it like a talisman. A girl no more than 12 tends to her dying mother alone because everyone else in the house is already gone. She brings water, changes soiled bedding, whispers prayers she half remembers from Mass, and when her mother finally goes still, the girl sits beside the body and does not know what to do next. There is no one to ask, no one to help. She is the last one left. The dead are everywhere. At first, families tried to bury their own with dignity. Proper coffins, priests, prayers over the grave. But the deaths came too fast. There were not enough coffins. Not enough gravediggers. Not enough priests. The churchyards filled until there was no room left between the stones. And so the city dug pits. Great holes outside the walls where bodies could be laid in rows, 20 deep, 30, 40, covered with a thin layer of soil and quicklime. Carts move through the streets at dawn and dusk. Drivers calling out in voices gone hoarse, "Bring out your dead! Bring out your dead!" You hear them coming long before you see them. The slow clop of hooves, the creak of wooden wheels, and if you look outside, you see them. Bodies wrapped in sheets, stacked like firewood. Some are carried out by family members who weep as they hand over their loved ones. Others are simply left on doorsteps, unclaimed, because everyone who knew their names is already dead. The laws begin to break down. Shops are abandoned, doors left open, goods spilling into the street. No one stops the looters anymore. Why would they? The watch is decimated. The courts are closed. If a man steals bread from a dead baker's stall, who will punish him? If a servant walks away from her master's house, taking whatever she can carry, who will bring her back? Property means nothing when you might be dead tomorrow. Some turn to pleasure in the face of death. They gather in the empty houses of the wealthy, those grand palazzos where the owners have fled or perished. They drink the finest wines, wear stolen silks, play music and dance until dawn. They say, if death is coming, let it find them happy. Let it find them full of life, even if that life is borrowed, even if it cannot last. Others turn inward. They speak to no one, see no one. They lock themselves in single rooms and wait, existing in a kind of suspended terror, listening to the city die around them. Every sound makes them freeze. Every footstep in the hall might be death approaching. They sleep lightly, if they sleep at all. And when they finally emerge, weeks later, blinking in the sunlight, they find a world utterly changed. The children suffer in ways that words cannot hold. Orphans wander the streets, too young to understand what has happened, calling for mothers who will never answer. Some are taken in by neighbors, by distant relatives, by strangers moved to pity. Others simply vanish, absorbed into the chaos, becoming part of the nameless dead. In a city where half the population has died, grief becomes too common to be remarkable. Everyone mourns. Everyone is haunted. And so mourning becomes silent, private, a thing carried inside where no one else can see. There are moments of unexpected kindness. A baker who continues to bake bread each morning, leaving loaves outside for anyone who needs them, refusing payment. A physician who stays when all the others have gone, moving from house to house until exhaustion finally takes him. A mother who takes in the children of her dead neighbor and raises them as her own, even though she has barely enough food for her own family. These small lights flicker in the darkness. They do not change what is happening, but they prove that something human remains. By autumn, the worst has passed in Florence. Not because the sickness is gone, but because there are so few left to kill. The plague moves on, following trade routes north and west, leaving behind a city of ghosts. Grass grows in the market square. Houses stand empty, their doors hanging open, rooms full of belongings no one will ever claim. The survivors move through this strange new world, trying to remember how to live. They marry quickly now. Widows and widowers, sometimes within weeks of their losses. Not for love, but for survival. A household needs hands to work, mouths to feed, bodies to keep it alive. Children are treasured in new ways, protected fiercely, because they are the future in a world where the future seemed to have ended. And always, beneath everything, is the knowledge that it could come back, that this might not be over, that next summer, or the one after, the fever might return, the swellings might appear again. The carts might roll through the streets once more, calling for the dead. You cannot forget what you have seen. The bodies in the pits, the empty houses, the silence where there should have been voices. This is the world now. This is what life has become. You carry it with you, and you keep walking.